You were telling about the experience as a janitor.
But he also told about the trouble he had getting a new broom. His broom was not much of a broom anymore, but he still had to take it to the meeting of the school board to show the broom, and that he needed a new broom.
Now, I'll tell you a little, I'll add a little to that. The Rolla told me about his work as a janitor. He was janitor for the school for 3 years, for $180 a year. The first 2 years, pardon me, it was a 2-room school. Then apparently they added another room. The 3rd year, a 3rd room was added. Every room was heated by a pot-bellied coal stove. And he brought in the coal, started the fires, carried out the ashes. That's part of his job. And also, there were outdoor toilets that had to be kept clean. And then he had to cut the kindling and be sure that kindling was there to help start the fires. And it says here, like you said, he swept the floors daily, and he mopped them occasionally, and he emptied the waste paper, of course. And like you said, if the wind was blowing hard, he would open all the windows on that side and let the wind blow the litter and papers along the floor, so we wouldn't make it easier. And then the pupils began losing papers out of their desks. The teachers put a stop to that practice, he said. Now, do you remember his schoolmates? He told me his best friend was Roy Skillman. Then there was Art Hawken Havley. And there was Art Diefendorf. What was that? Hawken
Ethel.
Hawken Havley. And Art Diefendorf.
Yes.
And the Hartwell boys, Warren and Harold, he said. Remember those?
Yeah. Schultz.
He said he didn't ever know. Oh, Schultz?
Oh, that's the one that he saw when he was back there.
Oh, yes.
He was in the Veterans Hospital too.
Oh, I see, down in Sioux Falls. Well, now, he doesn't remember any of these boys ever having a job or taking a job. When anyone had a job to do, they would say, "Get Rolla."
He was more than willing.
Yes, because he liked to keep his money and use it to spend when he
save
wanted
his money.
Another one of his jobs was at the gun club. Gun club. Do you remember about that?
I just remember that
he loaded the trap with clay pigeons, he said.
Yeah, they would chop them up and he would shoot them.
Well, he would load the trap, then they would shoot, I guess, at the clay pigeons.
Yes, but he was out there in front for the shoot.
Oh, well, here, he told me a little story, too, about that. What do you remember about that?
I don't remember because I just remember telling about it.
During the hunting
Parents
season.
thinking it was too dangerous.
Yeah. He said during the hunting season that George Pryor had a fast trotting horse. And he got Rolla to drive him out to hunt. He would let George out and he would hunt. Then later on, Rolla would drive back to pick him up when he was through. He would take him out to hunt, then drive back apparently. And then at that time he would drive out to get him. Now his pay for that was 1 or 2 quail. Quail. George Fryer would share some of his.
I'd like to tell another job that he had when you're
All right.
through with that.
Okay, I'm through with that one.
Well, another job that he had was driving a team of rather skittish horses. Now there were several traveling men, that is, salesmen, that stayed at the hotel when they were in town. Then they would ride the train to the next town and stop there and get orders. But they would like to drive there. And then to the next town the same way. Make better time because they'd often have to wait for a train, you see. And so Rolla got the team from the livery stable and drove. Sometimes it was at night. He told me one night when an electrical storm, and he took the traveling man there, left him, came home right in that storm, driving this team of kind of wild horses.
Yes, and I remember Rolla told me, but he had gone to bed when the call came about 9 o'clock at night, and your dad had taken the call, and it was threatening that electric storm. But your mother said to your father, well, you're not going to let that boy go out on a night like this, are you? And your father said, well, he took a job.
I've heard her tell that too.
Yes. Now he apparently was working for the livery stable. Was one of the drivers for the livery stable. And he told me that there were certain traveling men that would request to have him drive. He thinks because they would like to do some of their book work on the way, and if it were an older man, then he would have to visit with him. He'd want to visit. But Rolla, just a kid, wouldn't visit, he'd just drive.
No wonder he wasn't whistling, you know.
Could have been. Could have been.
Ethel, did he ever tell you how much you got when he left the traveling man on the town?
No. When he did what?
I think 50 cents.
Oh. Oh, that was his pay for driving him. He got a tip. Well, he told me about one incident in this driving. Sometimes he stayed at the barn when the owner had to leave. And his regular help, Pat, was gone too. So one day, the doctor called for a team. I think I was telling about the day that Rolla was alone in the livery stable, and the doctor called for a team. And he was to take the team out to the doctor, and the doctor would drive his own team. Rolla went to harness the team, and the team came into the stall, but on the wrong sides. And Rolla harnessed them that way. Rolla drove them to the doctor's office, and when the doctor brought the team back, he raised Cain about the team, each one wanting to go in the opposite direction than he was supposed to, because he was hitched up wrong. And then Pat discovered that they had been hitched up wrong. Pat was the helper in the livery stable. He was gone, so Rolla did it. And then another day...
He wouldn't know.
I don't know. I suppose not. He didn't realize. A kid didn't realize. Then another day, another experience, Rolla drove a traveling man to several inland towns and then back to Viborg, I guess it's pronounced. The towns he drove him to, from Irene to Hanson, from Hanson to Center Point, and then to Viborg, another 10 miles. And from Hanson to Center Point, it was 12 miles, so he had quite a long trip altogether, 10, 12, and then 10. And it was spring, and there had been a spring thaw, and the roads were muddy and rutted. And the man rode along trying to write up his orders between towns. And he was having problems because it was so rough riding through the muddy, rutty roads. He remarked about the rough roads. And then he said, "Rolla, do you think you can hit that rock?" "Well, I'll try, sir," said Rolla. And he did. He hit it with both buggy wheels on his side. George Rust was the man's name. And later the man told Rolla's dad, "Well, Roll," he said, "that boy wasn't trying to be smart. He just did what I told him to." And as you mentioned a while ago, he got 50 cents a trip. That was his pay. And regardless of how long it took, or how far he went. He hated to drive George Rust because he came every 2 weeks, and he always took a long trip, making several towns before he got back.
And he only got 50 cents.
He said
several towns.
He said he got 50 cents a trip, regardless of how long it was.
I think I've heard him say that too.
Well, do you remember anything else there in Irene?
Oh, I remember a lot of things about Irene, because I think as I look back, it was a wonderful place to raise children. There were so many places to have a good time. Now, Rolla, even though he worked, had all these jobs, he always had time to play. It seemed to me like something where he played baseball every afternoon. He and Rod Gilman were on opposite sides. They were fast friends, but they usually had a fight after the game. Then
well, one thing during harvest time that Rolla told me, that he worked for the farmers sometimes, driving the teams to pick up all bundles for thrashing. And that's when he learned his first lesson, he said. To work by the job and not by hourly wage. For instance, $1 a day would be an hourly wage, I suppose. One farmer said, "Can I get you to shock the grain for 50 cents a day?" And Rolla refused. "Well," he says, "I'll give you $5 to shock the field." That was 10 acres. So Rolla agreed to that. And he shocked it in one day. That was the time he got $5 a day. And then you told about the night that it stormed so, when he went out to drive the livery team. And he told me, well, he didn't think about it being dangerous. He just enjoyed, he was just driving it one way. He enjoyed driving home. He drove home alone. And every time the horses' hoofs, they were all shod. Every time they'd hit a stone or anything, the sparks would fly out. And he'd lie there, electricity would be flashing out of their ears and so on. And he thought it was a great display. He didn't think about how dangerous it really was.
That's the way we were, most of us, we're living in Western stuff so many years later. Mother would be frightened over the wind because she's been South Springs, I think, when we had tornadoes, cyclones, different times. I think she had lived through 3 other tornadoes and cyclones. So, she called us to be out in the house when she saw threatening fog, and we were enjoying it. We never just lived there. Never.
Well, then Rolla told me this about the time he had chicken pox. Have you heard that story?
Probably heard it.
Well, his mother and her friends were sitting in the living room, visiting, and gossiping in a way about how awful it was that the parents of kids with chicken pox let them run around town and expose other people. And when just about the time Rolla came in the house, and he went in and said, "Well, I've got 'em." He had one visible on the end of his nose. Remember that scar he had? That was from chicken pox. And his mother, your mother said, "Why, no, you haven't." "I have too," he said. And he opened up his shirt and exposed his bare chest that was covered with pox.
Yes, I do remember that.
Oh, dear. And then he told about diphtheria. Now, what do you remember about the diphtheria epidemic?
Every fall seemed to have an epidemic of diphtheria. That was marketplace. Many of the states had to be pumped out at different times. And, I was first to have diphtheria. There were 2 doctors in town that resided there, but both of them were out of town. It was the beginning of the hunting season. And of course it was necessary to have the antitoxin out of the way. And one of the waitresses in our hotel wanted our parents to get Dr. Valby from Bible. And but he had saved her brother's life. He had a different way of taking care of diphtheria. The way that doctors took care of it at that time was to remove the membrane in the throat. But this left raw fluids for the germ. And Dr. Valby had studied other ways of taking care of it. So we sent for Dr. Valby, and he said he would come if he could stay the first night with us, take care of him. Well, of course, glad to grant that request. And so he came. He was a typical old country doctor in his little black buggy with his little black bag.
Yes.
And by that time, I had been taken away from the hotel, but had a little cottage about 3 blocks from the hotel. So he came in, and first he gave me the antitoxin, which against my will. I know I didn't get all the shots they gave me.
Well, now, wasn't it after that that you got the mastoid? Was it after that?
That was when I was 22 years old.
Oh, I see.
But anyway, he told me then that he was going to have to wake me up real often in the night, take care of myself. Don't stay there and take care of me, but at first he questioned me about what I liked to do, and did I like flowers, and all, and certainly did like flowers, so he promised to bring me a flower the next night if I would be a good girl and get up every time he called. So what happened in the morning, he went home, and next night he came back, but I didn't see anything that I wanted. So then after he'd taken care of me, he went out to his garden and got into a scraggly plant. About 5 or 6 inches tall in a
Flower pot?
Flower pot, I guess. And no sign of it would ever have a flower on it. I was really disappointed, but I guess he knew nothing about psychology because he told me at great length how I had to take care of plants. In time that bloomed, and I had beautiful plant of yellow chrysanthemum.
Oh, Well, now Rolla
So the
told me.
following year, Rolla had it too, just about the same time, the same thing happened, the doctors knew how to tell him. So of course they stuck the doctors out immediately. They probably would have anyway, because he had this different method. He just got antitoxin. He painted these gray patches in my throat and didn't remove any membrane. And in time they loosened up.
Now, Rolla told me that year you had it, like so many had it. It was very serious, many deaths.
And I have black diphtheria.
Oh, what they call black
And my
diphtheria.
father came to see me for he just had to look through the window and Mother told me to open my mouth. Said it was as black as a chimney.
For goodness sake. Well, Rolla said everybody, all the other kids, most of them had diphtheria, and he'd kind of chide them about it because he didn't get it. But the next winter, he got it, and he was the only one in town that had diphtheria, and they used to come outside of his window, stand there and make fun of him. Because he was
We
quarantined.
were up and around all the time after the first few days. So he was pretty restless. He'd never been sick in his life, I don't think. And Mother'd play games with him and everything, but finally she taught him to knit.
Oh, to knit.
So he made his first pair of mittens, gray mittens.
Uh-huh.
He was in
Now, he never told me he learned to knit.
They were in the building in the upstairs room, and I could see any other children or anything. Second floor up there, there was no visitors. As soon as the locks about what to do, Leave you.
Well, that's what he said. The kids, his friends, used to come up to the house and they'd talk to him. He'd go to the window and they'd give him a bad time because he couldn't get outdoors. He was quarantined. Well, then he told me about the gun shop. Alan was quite a bit older, 12 years older than Rolla, was he? No?
12 years older than I, 9 years older than Rolla.
Oh, 9 years older than Rolla. He said that Alan took him with him to hunt ducks one time. And while Alan was trying to shoot a mud hen, the rifle jammed. And he told Rolla to hold the gun up by the barrel while Alan, tried to find out what was wrong with it and why it wouldn't fire. Well, Rolla had his hand around the end of the barrel when it accidentally fired, and the bullet went through his hand. Well, Alan tied a handkerchief around it, and of course Rolla began to whimper. And Alan told him, "Don't bawl. I'll give you $1 if you don't bawl." Well, Rolla shut up. Always right in there to make a little money. So they walked to the other side of town then, to the doctor's office, where they had it dressed, and then they went home. Well, of course, Rolla had his hand bandaged and his arm in a sling. And your mother said, "Oh, Rolla, what happened?" And Rolla replied, "Alan shot me." It was his right arm, so Rolla couldn't do any writing at school for a long time after that. And then he was excused then from any writing. But one spring day at recess, the teacher happened to glance out the window, and she saw Rolla, bandage and sling in his hip pocket, and he was catching in a game of baseball. And when he came in from recess, his bandage was back on his hand and his arm in a sling. And when classes began, Rolla, as usual, was not able to write his English lesson. Rolla was not able, as usual, to write his English lesson. And the teacher came down the aisle and said, "Rolla, get busy on your lesson." "But I can't write," Rolla said. "Well, if your hand is well enough to play baseball, I think you can write," she said.
I guess he realized the game was
So
up.
without further ado, Rolla removed his bandage and sling, stuck them in his hip pocket, and went to work on his English lesson. And then Rolla's best friend in Irene was Roy Skillman, the banker's son. Now, do you remember anything else there?
Oh, about their baseball game, and I remember that. I don't know whether they would what Roy was not of objective to being a little, but they wouldn't let him go out alone or like we all did.
Of course, Rolla was in an opportune place, too, in the hotel there.
Oh, yeah.
So it was easy for people to call on him. Now, Rolla told me about the time he went to Sioux Falls to the circus with his dad on the train. And he said
I
they
think we
watched.
met more than once because I remember going to Ringling Brothers to Barnum and Bailey 3 different times. Circus.
Uh-huh.
with him coming in town.
Well, this time, the one he told me about, said they watched the parade in the morning. And then he turned Rolla loose to see the circus on his own. And your dad pointed to the clock on the courthouse spire, told Rolla to be at the depot to go home at 5 o'clock. So Rolla went the rounds of the circus. Now, he had his own spending money, and he had a ticket to the circus that the promoter